Morrison joined Corson in Paris in March 1971, at an apartment she had rented on the Rue Beautreillis, in the 4th arrondissement of Paris on the right bank. In letters he described going for long walks through the city, alone. During this time, Morrison shaved his beard and lost some of the weight he had gained in the previous months. Morrison died on July 3, 1971 at age 27. In the official account of his death, he was found in a Paris apartment bathtub, at Rue Beautreillis, by Corson. The official cause of death was listed on the death certificate as heart failure. No autopsy was performed. The absence of an autopsy left many questions regarding Morrison's cause of death. In Wonderland Avenue, Danny Sugerman discussed his encounter with Corson after she returned to the United States. According to Sugerman's account, Corson stated that Morrison had died of an accidental heroin overdose, having snorted what he believed to be cocaine. Sugerman added that Corson had given numerous contradictory versions of Morrison's death, saying at times that she had killed Morrison, or that his death was her fault. Corson's story of Morrison's unintentional ingestion of heroin, resulting in an accidental overdose, is supported by the confession of Elaine Ronay, who has written that Morrison died of a hemorrhage after snorting Corson's heroin, and that Corson nodded off instead of phoning for medical help, leaving Morrison alone and bleeding to death. Ronay confessed in an article in Paris that he then helped cover up the circumstances of Morrison's death, and that there was no autopsy, the normal procedure when a young person dies suddenly, due to the medical examiner being bribed. In the epilogue of No One Here Gets Out Alive, Hopkins and Sugerman write that Ronay and Agnes Varda say Corson lied to the police who responded to the death scene, and later in her deposition, telling them Morrison never took drugs. She also claimed that she was Morrison's cousin. In the epilogue to No One Here Gets Out Alive, Hopkins says that 20 years after Morrison's death, Ronay and Varda broke their silence and gave this account. They arrived at the house shortly after Morrison's death and Corson said that she and Morrison had taken heroin after a night of drinking. Morrison had been coughing badly, had gone to take a bath, and vomited blood. Corson said that he appeared to recover and that she then went to sleep. When she awoke sometime later, Morrison was unresponsive, so she called local friends. Hopkins and Sugerman also claim that Morrison had asthma and was suffering from a respiratory condition involving a chronic cough and vomiting blood on the night of his death. This theory is partially supported in The Doors, written by the remaining members of the band, in which they claim Morrison had been coughing up blood for nearly 2 months in Paris, but none of the members of The Doors were in Paris with Morrison in the months prior to his death. No other friends have reported witnessing Morrison coughing. According to a Madame Collinet, who was at Père Lachaise cemetery mourning the recent loss of her husband, she witnessed Morrison's funeral. The ceremony was pitiful, with several of the attendants muttering a few words, throwing a few flowers over the casket, then leaving quickly and hastily within minutes as if their lives depended upon it. Those who attended included Elaine Ronay, Agnes Varda, Bill Siddons, manager, Corson, and Robin Wardle, Morrison's Canadian private secretary at the time, for a few months. In the first version of No One Here Gets Out Alive, published in 1980, Sugerman and Hopkins gave some credence to the rumor that Morrison may not have died at all, calling the fake death theory not as far-fetched as it might seem. This theory led to considerable distress for Morrison's loved ones over the years, notably when fans would stalk them, searching for evidence of Morrison's whereabouts. No proof of any kind has ever been offered to substantiate Sugerman's suggestion that Morrison was still alive. In 1995, a new epilogue was added to Sugerman's and Hopkins's book, giving new facts about Morrison's death and discounting the fake death theory, saying, as time passed, some of Jim and Pamela Corson's friends began to talk about what they knew, and although everything they said pointed irrefutably to Jim's demise, there remained and probably always will be those who refuse to believe that Jim is dead and those who will not allow him to rest in peace. In the August 1, 2014 issue of Mojo magazine, Marianne Faithfull says that her drug dealer boyfriend at the time, Jean de Breteul, killed Morrison. Count Breteul was also dating Corson at this time and providing her with heroin. In the interview, Faithfull says, "I could intuitively feel trouble. I thought, I'll take a few Tuinal and I won't be there. And he went to see Jim Morrison and killed him. I mean, I'm sure it was an accident. Poor bastard. The smack was too strong. Yeah. And he died. And I didn't know anything about this. Anyway, everybody connected to the death of this poor guy is dead now. Except me." The same batch of French Connection heroin, supplied by Jean de Breteul's two dealers, that Marianne Faithfull claims killed Jim Morrison, is also implicated in the death of actress and prior lover of Breteul, Talitha Getty, who died 11 days after Jim Morrison, of a heroin overdose in Rome. In 2007, Sam Burnett, a former manager of the Rock and Roll Circus nightclub, released a French book titled The End, Jim Morrison, alleging that Morrison overdosed on heroin in his nightclub. He claims that Morrison came to the club to buy heroin for Corson, used some himself and died in the bathroom, and that his body was then moved back to the Rue Beautrellis apartment by Patrick Chauvel and two drug dealers, nicknamed L.E. Chinoise and L.E. Petit Robert. There have been many other conspiracy theories surrounding Morrison's death, but like Burnett's claims, they are not supported by corroboration, as are the basically concurring accounts of Ronay, Varda, Corson and Faithfull. Wonderland Avenue, in which author Danny Sugerman chronicles his own descent into heroin addiction during the decade that followed Morrison's death, also contains a warning to young Doors fans. Sugerman wrote that Morrison died from substance abuse, plain and simple, and they should ignore any substance abusers who use the contradictory accounts of Morrison's final hours as a justification to get drunk or stoned themselves. If a Doors fan is friendly with a substance abuser who announces plans to die young as a tribute to Morrison, then let him go and die, wrote Sugerman.